Okay, welcome back to another vid. Apologies for the long delay. I think it's been 2.5 months, which is ridiculous. But it's a classic case of being a little bit busy, being very busy really, and being lazy. I've had family over. It's the first time I've seen my mum since 2009, which, I mean, seriously, if you've not seen your family for a while, you've got to, because that is ridiculous. I mean, obviously we live in different countries. I live on the opposite side of the world, so it doesn't help. But yeah, the last time she was here was in 2009, and here we are, almost 2017. So that was good, obviously, but it's just weird how time flies. Really is. So I've been busy in that sense, been busy with work, and just been a bit lazy as well when it comes to uploading. But I thought, you know what, I've got to do it because A, I want to do it, and B, I've just stuck the Xbox One on behind me, if you can see, and it's in the middle of another update. Bloody hell, modern gaming, Jesus. Well, I like modern gaming, but seriously, it's one of the downfalls, really, of it. Definitely one of the cons. All this constant updates and all that kind of stuff. In the scheme of things, it shouldn't take long, another 5-10 minutes or whatever, or what have you, I should say. But still, it's kind of annoying. You just want to play a game, and you're greeted with that screen, but there you are. So it's funny, actually. I'm glad that's happening, because it's given me this opportunity to make this vid, which is going to be a pickups vid. And I think just quickly, the other thing I will say is, apart from being busy and lazy and all the rest of it, like I always say, I think one of the things which sometimes prevents me, and I think therefore you and everyone else in the community, from making a vid, is when you see pretty much everybody else that you subscribe to not making a vid either. And if they're not making a vid, and then it makes you think, well, maybe I'll make it next week, and then another week goes by, and before you know it, a month or 2.5 months in this case has gone by, and you're only just getting around to doing it. So if you're watching this vid and you've not made a video for ages, and maybe you want to, but maybe you've just been thinking, what's the point? I can't be bothered. Well, just do it. You don't have, all right, I'm doing a pickups vid here of games I've accumulated, over the last sort of 2.5-3 months. But you don't have to buy something to make a pickup vid, to make a video. You could make a gameplay vid, do a review, just do a vlog. What are you watching on TV? What's going on in your life? Do a football vid, like I'm going to start doing again shortly, which I know you all love, obviously. Maybe not. Do a music vid. Do whatever you want. Do a movie vid. Now, I'm not massively into movies. Well, that's just my thing. You might love it, and if you do, then do it. But you could talk about anything. So, yeah, if you're feeling like, I've not got any money, or I've not bought any games, so I've got nothing to talk about, it doesn't have to be gaming related. Or it could just be talking about games you are playing, or have been playing. So, just a few ideas, just do a bit of brainstorming. You don't have to spend money to make videos, so I think that's an important thing. And it's just good to get your views out, isn't it? And share those thoughts and comments with like-minded people. So anyway, enough preaching there. 11 games altogether, and let's start off with the first one. Now, you can probably see it there. Can you... Spoiler? There we go. Premier Manager. Yeah, Premier Manager on the Atari ST. So I should say as well, there's Atari ST, there's PS1, 360, which is kind of retro, I guess. Sega Saturn, Sega Saturn, and Super Nintendo. So, yeah, now Premier Manager. This to me is one of my, honestly, I'm not even exaggerating, one of my most nostalgic games of all times. Of all time, even. God, I'm so out of touch, so ropey. Not made a video for a long time, just every word that's coming out of my mouth is wrong. But yeah, now I remember where I was when I got this game, and it was in late 1992. It was in John Menzies, if anyone remembers that brand, that store. And it was the one in Bournemouth. Now, obviously, the amount of people watching this who went to John Menzies in Bournemouth is got to be very, very small, percentage-wise. Maybe even 0%. But if you know where it was, then that's where I was. And it was like a 2-tiered shop at the time. On the first floor, you had that as you walked in, you had your, like the newspapers and the magazines and all that kind of stuff. A typical kind of news agents, which ultimately John Menzies was. But then if you went downstairs, you had your video games and music and all that kind of stuff. Posters and what books, I guess, all that kind of thing. And books were upstairs as well, I think. But anyway, you definitely had music and you definitely had games downstairs. So late 1992, I remember going down there. I was with my dad. My dad went off and looked at the music stuff because that's his thing. And I went off and I looked at the computer stuff, which of course was my thing. And at the time I had an Atari ST. It was late 92, as I say, so I was just a month or so away from getting a Super Nintendo, which I got Christmas 92. But I was looking at the Atari ST stuff, and this game just immediately stuck out because I looked at the cover And I thought, that looks great. It's a football game, Premier Manager. I'm into my football. I was into my management sims back then. And I turned around and looked at the back. It looked kind of enticing. It's just kind of, text, essentially. You don't actually play the game. It's a management sim. So you pick the team, you buy and sell the players, all that kind of stuff. But there's so many things in the front. It sounded so appealing. Manager and club histories, complete results service, 1 to 4 player option, which was really cool for me and my friends at the time. Weekly fax data. Fax. Although people are still using fax. What's all that about? Get with the times. And transfer news and player information, match reports. On the back, 5 full divisions, so you could play in the conference as well. Full ground sponsorship, full ground improvement scheme as laid out in the Taylor report, which of course was a big thing back then, which is basically for all-seater stadiums for the top division. Comprehensive transfer market, all these different kind of bullet points to sell the game, and it sold me. I thought, I've got to get this game. But the problem is I didn't have any money. I was like, 13, 14 years of age at the time, didn't have any money. And my dad was with me. He'd just finished buying a couple of records or tapes, maybe whatever was doing the rounds at the time, maybe CDs he'd moved on to by that point. So I did that typical thing, like maybe you did this, but I know I used to do it, as a kid, where I played that kind of card where I was hoping he'd get it for me. So I remember him like it was yesterday, even though it was 1992, John Mendes is in Bournemouth, downstairs, he walks on over and he's right, you ready? He's got his stuff, you ready to leave? And I'm like, oh, I remember holding it up, like standing there. I go, oh yeah, but this looks good, doesn't it? And he's like, yeah, it does. Come on, we've got to go. And I'm like, oh, well, that didn't work. So plan B. I went, I think Sam's bought this game. It looks really good. And he's like, well, you can play it around Sam's, can't you? I thought, bloody hell, well, that one didn't work either. Got to come up with a drastic plan here. Now, what had always happened in the past, well, not always, I'm not spoiled, or I wasn't spoiled. Well, I was spoiled as a kid, but not to the point where I had everything bought for me. But what happened invariably is I'd do this, I'd pull this kind of stunt where I'd be like, oh, it looks really good. And my dad usually would be like, rather than me, my mum did it as well, but my dad having more money and stuff, he'd be like, oh, do you want to get it? And I'd be like, oh, go on then, kind of thing. Twisted my arm, thank you, all that kind of stuff. But he didn't do it this time, it wasn't working. So I had to, in desperation, because he's like, come on, we've got to go. We've got to leave to wherever we were going. And I was like, I've really got to pull something out of the bag here. I want this game. I'm not leaving until I've got it. And I went, I said, I was kind of looking at it and looking at him, go, would you mind, can I give you like 10 quid now and then the rest, pocket money and stuff, maybe, don't give me any for a couple of weeks or a few weeks or whatever it would have been. And he was like, oh, all right, go on then. So it was like, get in there. So I got my game. I eventually got the game I wanted because I didn't want to ask for it because I was never like that as a kid. Even as an adult, I really don't like asking for things. So I usually don't. I just don't do it. I just feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable taking things off people. It's just the way I am. I always have felt that way and I always will. But I really wanted this game, so I had to go to, I had to resort to some desperation tactics, really. So I took the game home. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. Got really great memories of playing this, not just by myself, I sound like a Billy No Mates there, but playing it with friends, like I know you won't know them, but like Sam and Rob and Danny and Gavin and several other people. We'd have like the 4-player mode. We'd all pick a team and we could be in different divisions and stuff. It was really great. Old-fashioned, kind of 4 people around the computer, old school. Obviously you've got this day and age where it's heavily reliant on online gaming, with online gaming. And that's great. There's a time and there's a place for that. I do like it. But there is something special about 4 people or 2 people or whatever it is, crowded around a computer or television, all watching the same screen, all playing the same game. And that brings back so many great memories. So yeah, there's a side view, obviously. Premier Manager, Gremlin, great old-fashioned nostalgic logo there. So yeah, on the Atari ST, obviously also came out on the Amiga and the PC. The sequel, Premier Manager 2, I didn't really like. This for me was much better, but that may be because this is where the nostalgia is. Maybe 2's probably a bigger and better game, but I've not really got into it, not yet. Premier Manager 3, same score. This for me is the best one. But I guess that's just a matter of opinion, isn't it? So really, really pleased to get that. And I got it from the UK, obviously. I had to import it. It was around about, including shipping, you're looking at about $20. So about 12 quid. Might have been a bit more, there or thereabouts. So that's that. Now, I've got 5 PlayStation 1 games. Now, you'll all know by now, I'm sure, that when it comes to retro games and when it comes to me personally, I like to buy PAL games. And you'll know because it's all to do with nostalgia and it's just the way I operate. I just prefer it. To me, I know I've said this many times before, but I can stick a game on a shelf, like a PS1 game or a Saturn game or whatever it is, Super Nintendo game, and just having it on my shelf brings back all the memories of that era, of particular friends and times and places. I don't have to really play the game sometimes. It's just owning it. It kind of means a lot to me. So if I've got like the American version of a game, invariably the artwork is different or the box is different, you know. And so if I've got it on a shelf, it doesn't really mean much to me because when I look at it, that's not the one I recognise from when I was a kid. So that's why I buy PAL, because for me, I retro game not because of the games, obviously that's part of it, but I retro game because of nostalgia. So it's all about getting the PAL copies because that's what I had when I was a kid. That's what was around. With that said, out of these 5 PlayStation 1 games, one of them's American because I don't mind grabbing them as a bit of a stopgap. Obviously, being in America, they're easy to get. They're cheaper to get more often than not, and they're going to arrive much quicker. Like if I buy a PS1 game today on eBay, PS1 for example, it could be anything, then it's going to arrive within like 4 or 5 days, maybe even less if I'm buying it from a fellow seller in California. The closer they are to me, the quicker it's going to get here. If I'm buying it from like New York, it's going to take maybe 2 or 3 extra days. So delivery's much quicker, but it just doesn't have the nostalgia. The front cover's usually the same, but of course the boxes are different. Anyway, I've said all that before, so I'll just get on with it. So the American game I've got, and I do want the PAL game, it's very, very cheap, so it's not like it's rare, and I'll get it eventually. But this will certainly do for now, and I've played it. It's really good. It's a cheap one, mind, so you probably think it's rubbish, but it's Porsche Challenge. It's a very limited game, and I do like, I've got to be honest, I do like the American dual, basically normal music CD style cases. It's just that I'm used to the thick, bulky ones that smash really easily, which are rubbish, I've got to admit, but again, it's nostalgia. But I do like these ones. I've got a fair few American games now. But yeah, I remember paying full whack for this back in, 96 did it come out? I'm looking on the back, which says 97, so maybe it was 97, or maybe it was 96 in the UK. Either way, 96, 97, I paid 30, 40 quid for that, or for this game. Now, I think I probably picked this up, including shipping, I think it was like $4.99, like $5. It's like 3 quid, or something like that. So it's a very limited game in the sense that basically all you do is you drive around in a Porsche Boxer. I'm looking on the back, it doesn't say anything. Oh, it does say Boxster, yeah, not Boxer, Boxster. So that's the only car you've got, I think. You can choose different colours, and I think maybe some have got slightly different specs, but ultimately they're kind of pretty similar, if not the same cars. There's not too many tracks in the scheme of things, but it's a really good game. I really like it. It may be that blink of nostalgia again, kicking in, which usually happens. But I do really like it. I think it looks quite good. You know, well, it's a bit jagged, as a lot of 3D polygon style, you know, late 90s games are. But I like it. And I tell you what, having played it again quite recently, i.e. just the other day, now, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I found it really, really difficult. A proper kind of homage to like old games where if you don't finish first, then you don't proceed to the next track. You've got to finish first. It might have been just the mode I was playing in, I'm not sure. But if you don't finish first, you've got to do the track again until you do finish first, and then you can proceed to the next stage. So really challenging, but not frustrating. It was kind of annoying in stages, of course, not to finish first, and sometimes you feel robbed or a bit cheated. But it's definitely got that old school kind of feel to it, where you want to have one more go to get to the next race, the next track, to open the next track. But yeah, very limited in regards to tracks and cars, but I really like it. It's a really good game and very, very cheap. So you're just going to pay like a couple of quid for that if you want it in PAL regions. And if you're in America, then again, you're going to be looking at maybe $4 or $5 including shipping. So really cheap and a really good game. So back on to the PAL game, the PAL PlayStation 1 games. There's 4 of them altogether. Now, some of these, I think it's 2 of these, maybe 2 or 3 of these PlayStation games, and then a couple of the PAL Super Nintendo games. Pete SNES-tastic helped me out. This is a couple of months ago now. But again, first time I've made a video for ages, so that's why I'm just showing them out now. So big thanks to Pete, and you'll all know Pete's channel, I'm sure. So, yeah, the first one is a classic game. This is one which I got in late 1995 because I got my PS1. Oh, I just heard a noise there. It looks like the Xbox One has finally updated. Unbelievable. Absolutely ridiculous how long it takes, but there we are. So I'm going to go on that in a bit. Oh, and by the way, I'll mention it at the end of the vid if I remember. If not, I'll say it here. But I'm going to do another pickups vid, maybe tomorrow, and it'll be exclusively Xbox One. So I wanted to keep the retro stuff separate, and we'll do the modern stuff, the current gen, the Xbox One, hopefully tomorrow. So you're probably going to see these videos uploaded within like a day. They might even be uploaded at the same time, we'll see. But anyway, Christmas 1995 is when I got my Super Nintendo. No, I got that in 1992. Is when I got my PlayStation 1. It came out in like September time, I think. And I got mine at Christmas. Now, in the build-up to Christmas, I bought a handful of games. And one of them, in preparation, in anticipation to getting the PS1. And one of them was this. It's loaded in the double jewel case. And featuring music from Pop Will Eat Itself. And I don't really like the band, to be honest. I'm not really into that kind of music. But I've got to be honest, it really fits the scene well. It works with the game. So it's really nostalgic. Again, that nostalgia, it's always so common. It's a common theme in all of my vids, pretty much. Certainly all my retro game pickup vids, anyway. So yeah, it's a top-down, I say top-down, it's kind of a, go in all directions, don't you? Shooter, overhead-style shooter. Pretty graphic, pretty gory, in a sort of a 32-bit way. But yeah, huge nostalgia for this game. And I just really like it. And even playing it now, I think the lighting is amazing. It just looks really good. Like the luminous kind of neon lights of green and yellow and red and whatever it is, blue. Just looks really nice. And it's a very, for me anyway, a very atmospheric game, a very immersive game, and a bloody hard game. A bit like Posh Challenge, really. In fact, the more I think about it, maybe the PS1 era, this could be a topic for another day, but maybe the PS1 era was the last one where gaming was truly difficult, whereas your 360, the PS3, and certainly with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, yeah, you've got the odd exception like the Dark Souls games and all that kind of stuff, but generally a lot of modern games hold your hand, whereas back then, in like the mid to late 90s, they were very challenging, and that's what I'm finding going back to a lot of these old games. It might just be me, I don't know, but I find a lot of them are very challenging, and I'm really liking them as a result. So, another swig of water and a cough immediately after having the water. Brilliant. So, next up is a sports game. Now, I love this game. This is really playable. If you're not into rugby, then I still urge you to buy this game or to play it, because you don't have to be into the game. The rules are implemented into the game, of course, but it's not really that hardcore. I think I may have mentioned this. I didn't show it off because I've only just got it like a month or so ago. But I may have mentioned it, I don't know why, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, maybe I said I was going to get it or something. But anyway, that game is Jonah Lomu Rugby on the PlayStation 1 now. This is such a playable game. It's not realistic because it's very arcadey. You can get the ball, depending on the player's stats, and you can just run around people, like run around rings with them and score tries. But I guess that's obviously if you're controlling a really fast player. But one of the cool things about it is all the players have individualistic kind of characteristics and skills or attributes. So some are slow, depending on the position that they play. Some are really strong, so even though they're slow, they're hard to knock off the ball because of their strength. And some of them are really thin and or slim and are really fast as a result. So it's a really good game. There's a few stadiums you can choose from, which is in stark contrast to another game that came out on the Xbox One, the PS4. I'll talk about that one maybe tomorrow, called Rugby 15, which is just horrific. A horrific game, but I'll talk more about that tomorrow, or the day after, whenever I do it. But yeah, this has got several stadiums, weather conditions, commentary. It's a really good game. It's fast, it's furious. Like I say, if you like an arcade-style rugby game where you don't have to know the rules, you just basically get the ball and run from one end to the other and put it down for a try. If you're after that kind of thing, I urge you to give this a go. It's probably not going to be expensive, maybe anywhere between like a £5 and a tenner, there or thereabouts. A really good game, very playable. If you like playable games, you'll like that, even if you're not into rugby. So 2 more PlayStation 1 games left. Now, there's many nostalgic games, it's that word again, that I've got for the PlayStation 1. But this is, I hesitate to say it's, well, I wouldn't say it's the most nostalgic, but it's certainly one of them. It's one of them, despite, up until now, never having owned this game before. Let me explain. You can't quite see it, but over there I've got my PlayStation 1 games. Well, you can see some of them. But to the right there, or the left, I guess, depending on which way this is going to come out, because of the mirrored kind of effect. At least the right I'm looking at it, probably you as well. There's a load of other games, and in particular, there's a Demo 1 CD. A Demo 1 CD which came with the original PlayStation 1, which is what I got, as I say, Christmas 1995. And on that game, you had the tech demo, if you remember, with that, the dinosaur was the Stingray, was that what it was as well? with the music on, very kind of piano music, relaxing and chilled out and all that kind of stuff. And then you had several games, demos. Was Wipeout one of them? What else did they have? Was Jumping Jack Flash, was that one? I can't quite remember. But one of them was this one, which is ESPN Extreme Games. Now, you might think, well, it sounds a bit rubbish. Honestly, this is brilliant. This is one of my favourite games. Admittedly, my favourite, probably like 25 of them are my favourite PS1 games, but it would make one of my 25. It's a really good game. Think of it as a cross between, if you can even work it out, a cross between something like a Road Rash and maybe, I don't know, like maybe like a Courier Crisis, if anyone's played that on the Sega Saturn or the PS1. Maybe that's a bad analogy, that one, to use, but it's kind of like a Road Rash, but you're on a skateboard, you've got, is it called the luge, is that how you pronounce it? There's a BMX you can go on, rollerblades, choose your vehicle of sorts, not a vehicle, is it? Your mode of transport, you know what I mean? And it's so funny because sometimes when people are going by on that luge, if that's how you pronounce it, and if you're going by on like a bike, you can kick them as you're going by. Like I say, that's where kind of the Road Rash element kicks in. And the noise it makes when you make the impact and the grunt of when they fall off and you just watch them kind of fly backwards. It's genuinely hilarious. It used to make me laugh as a kid back in like, the mid-90s, and it's equally as funny now. It's aged a little bit, of course it has, but I really like it. I think it's aged actually quite well under the circumstances. Now, there was a period in time where if you go back maybe 3 or 4 years, for whatever reason, this was fetching around about 20 quid on eBay UK, and of course I wanted the PAL version. The American version was a lot cheaper. But yeah, it was 20 quid. And then in recent months, it seems to have come down to around about sort of a tenner, there or thereabouts. So I don't know what the reason for that is. Has it been released on the PlayStation Network or something for the PS4? As like a PS1 classic or something? I'm not quite sure. I don't know. So maybe it's gone back up again. Maybe it's just a brief kind of funny 5 minutes where it went down in price. But yeah, so it was around about 20 quid. I got it for about 10 quid. A little bit more including shipping, but it's a great game. Honestly, you'd never think it. You'd think ESPN, it sounds rubbish, like a TV kind of sports game, a generic kind of thing. It's really good. I urge you to get it. If you like Road Rash and that kind of stuff, you've got to give it a go. So, last up but not least, again, another one where the memories come flooding back. Now, believe it or not, this is the first time I've owned this game, but it came out in 1997. I don't quite know why I'm looking at the back of the case for confirmation, because I know it was 1997, because when this game came out, I was working in an electronics boutique. I've mentioned it quite a few times. I used to work in the Poole branch, and then at the beginning of 98, or Christmas 97, early 98, I moved over to the Bournemouth branch. It's like the next town on. A new store had opened, and they wanted new staff, and I was headhunted, believe it or not. So, I wasn't there very long in the scheme of things, so I moved on to bigger and better things. But, yes, I worked in the Poole and the Bournemouth branch. But when I was working in the Poole branch, people were going mental for this game. It was a huge, huge game. Everybody was buying it. And it was just one of the biggest selling games of 1997. And also, probably now, still of all time, people still talk about it in high praise. Now, I remember at the time when I worked there, I took it home. I borrowed it. And I think there's actually some games, technically, I borrowed and never returned. Didn't steal them, just forgot to return them. That was one of the perks of working at a game store. You could, take games home, play them for a few days, and then in theory bring them back. Just didn't always happen. And so I took this game home because everyone was going mental about it. You've got to play this game. It's brilliant, and everybody was buying it. But I kept looking at the back and the screenshots, and it was on some of the TVs that we had in the shop to try and sell games to people. And it just didn't really appeal. Anyway, that game is Final Fantasy VII. So I know what you're probably thinking. It's a classic. How can you not like it and all the rest of it? It is a classic, obviously, in terms of sales and reputation. But I remember taking it home to borrow. I did return it, actually. I just didn't return others, but I did return this one. And I put it on for like 5 minutes. I couldn't get into it. Back then, it wasn't my kind of game. It really wasn't my thing. But now, it is my kind of thing. So I can appreciate it now. But back then, I just wasn't really into it. So, yeah, it's a great game in the sense that it sold so well and people hold it in such high regard. I get that. I'm starting to see why people like it, and I'm starting to appreciate it myself. But I'll be honest, back when it came out, it wasn't my thing whatsoever. So it's only now, in 2016, that I've got a copy of a game that came out in 1997, which is quite funny, really. Now, the one thing I will say, I don't doubt that it's an original game or anything, but you won't be able to tell, but it's slightly faded. Slightly faded here, maybe sun-faded, I guess. It did have me worrying a little bit, thinking, is it like a copy or something? It definitely isn't. You know, it's boxed, it's complete, everything is legit. It's got this kind of holographic sticker on the front down there. The back looks fine. It does look normal. I just think maybe someone had it out in the sun a little bit, and it's ever so slightly faded. And you can tell that because, you can tell, I should say, by looking at the logo on here, and then compare it to the one on the back, and this is slightly brighter. It's only slightly, though. There's not a lot in it, but it was a very minor kind of like, I don't know, it was a downside. When I kind of opened the package, I thought, I wish it was a little bit brighter than that. But it's not a deal breaker. You know, you really can't tell. Only if you're fussy like me would you notice. So I actually got that in America. The guy was wanting $60 for it. I thought, I'm just not paying $60 for it. I kind of haggled with him. I was going to say outside of eBay. It wasn't. It was through the message system on eBay. I said, look, you're not going to get $60 for that. Come on, mate. You know, probably 25, 30 is the best you're going to get. So we struck a deal where I think I got it for like $25 or whatever it was. So I'm pleased to get that. $25 is around about sort of $16, $17, give or take. Oh, sorry, 16, 17 quid. So I'm happy to do that. I think that's a decent price. So Final Fantasy VII, almost 20 years later, I finally got it. Can you believe it? Finally. There you go. A Final Fantasy got it. 20 years later. Worst pun ever. So 5 games left. And the next 2 are going to be on the 360. I'm not going to talk about them too much because I don't really know a lot about this genre. I have played them both, and I do like them. But they're shooter games, shoot-em-up games, shmup games, whatever terminology people like to use. So the first one is Raiden 4. Now, I did originally have this game, but we're going back about 6 years. So I bought it again all these years later, and there's a spine if you're into that kind of thing. Might be different in PAL regions, who knows? So yeah, really like it. It is a good game. I'm just not an expert on these kind of games. I'm really not. For me, they are all bullet hell. That's what I class them as, because there's bullets everywhere, and it's a nightmare. But in saying that, sometimes I watch gameplays of people, maybe yourself, maybe people within the community or the circles that I watch, and you just breeze through the gameplay. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how some people do it. Because some of these bullets, they basically cover the whole screen, and yet somehow people get out of it. I don't know how they do it. Sometimes it is almost impossible. But despite being rubbish at these games, I do really like them. They've always had, for me anyway, they've always had that, just one more go kind of element to it. So yeah, there's this one, which is Raiden 4, as I say, and one which is basically very similar, and it's a deluxe edition, so I don't know how this differs to the standard edition. I may mispronounce this, but it's Dodonpachi Resurrection. Again, with the spine there. So a similar kind of thing. Very kind of almost manga style at the back there. And for me, as I say, kind of bullet hell, bullets going everywhere, and trying to avoid it and beat the bosses and all the rest of it. So I'm sorry I can't really elaborate too much on this genre, but I don't really know what else to say because I'm not an expert at them. But I do like playing them. I do like playing shoot-em-ups, if that's the correct terminology to use. I know some people say shmups and others don't like that. I know some people don't like the term bullet hell because for some it's not hell at all. It's very easy. But you call it what you like. They're still good games. I'm just not great at them, but I do like them. So 2.5 months ago, when I made my last vid, in fact, it might be further back than that because it was my last pickup vid. So maybe 3 months, who knows? But I picked up Winter Heat on the Sega Saturn. Now, Winter Heat is a sequel to this one, which is Athlete Kings. As I say, for the Sega Saturn. Winter Heat came in the really thick kind of plastic moulded case, which is my favourite Saturn case. These are the old classics, which fall to bits if you allow it. This one hasn't done it, but all it would take is for this to come away, the glue to take away, and it'd be hanging off by a thread. Thankfully, this one isn't too bad. So, so basically just think of, it's just basically an Olympic Games kind of thing. So, with the look at the polygon kind of look on that. So, very dated, it really is. But I have fun with these kind of games. I always think back to the Daley Thompson decathlon games from back in the sort of mid-80s, wasn't it really? Mid to late 80s. So, I don't buy many Sega Saturn games, but I do like to chip away at the collection every now and again. Now, when I say collection, I'm not going for a full collection. I just like to buy one every now and again that I've not got. So I guess, technically, maybe one day, with that mentality, maybe I might get a full collection. But it's not an aim. It's not an ambition. Nothing against full collections. I love watching people do it. I just don't think I've got the discipline to do it because I never have. I've never, ever seen one through. To be fair, I've never tried. If it ever happens, I'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but it's whatever. I'm not really bothered. So last up but not least, I've got 2 Super Nintendo games. PAL, obviously, as you know, because I keep saying it, because of nostalgia. It's all about nostalgia. Now, the first one is funny because, for whatever reason, I don't know if the American version's called this or not, but I've always... Well, let me show you what it is, and then I'll tell you what I've always called it. So it's Bubsy. Right, Bubsy, and again, this is what is amazing about PAL Super Nintendo games. It's the multicoloured spines and the boxes. I just love it. You may think it looks bollocks, and that's your opinion. You'd be wrong. But no, if that's your opinion, fair enough. The black American ones, or the American ones are black with coloured writing. They look all right. They've grown on me. But ultimately, you'll never replace the multicoloured boxes. I just think it looks amazing of the PAL Super Nintendo. So that's another reason why I like to buy this particular format. Nostalgia being the main one, as you know. So yeah, so it's called Bubsy, and then kind of a sub kind of title, In Claws Encounters of the Third Kind. So you can see what they did there with that play on words. Now, I always thought it was called Bubsy the Bobcat. Obviously, because it's Bubsy, the title, I knew that, and he's a bobcat. I just thought it was Bubsy the Bobcat. All these years, I thought that was what you called the game. I think what it goes back to, and I don't have the particular magazine at hand, but I remember buying it when it came out, so probably like kind of mid 1992, late 92, early 93. It was a copy of Superplay, and they either did a review or a preview, and I could have sworn blind, I've got this memory anyway, even though it was almost 25 years ago, I could have sworn that on the double page kind of spread, or whatever it was, it said Bubsy the Bobcat. So from that moment onwards, I always thought that's what you called the game. And probably, as a result, I will always call it Bubsy the Bobcat, even though technically it doesn't say the Bobcat anywhere on this box. So it's basically Bubsy. So it's a platform game, a very cute kind of platform game, very bright, very colourful. And it's a decent game. I like it. So really pleased to get it. I did play it when it came out. I just didn't own it myself. A friend of mine had it. And I'm only getting around to owning it now all these years later. So that's that one, Bubsy the Bobcat. So last but not least for this retro gaming pickup, which has dragged on, Christ, for quite a while. It's a game, actually, it's funny because I watched Adam, 16-Bit Brit, did a gameplay video for this, probably, was it last week maybe? It's quite recent, well, very recently. And he did, if memory serves me right, a gameplay for the Sega Mega Drive version. But it's the same kind of game. There's a few kind of slight differences, but ultimately it's the same game. And it's Street Racer. Now, the condition of this, in fact, quite honestly, the condition of pretty much all my Super Nintendo games are great because I don't buy them unless they're in good condition. So, obviously it's tempting every now and again to buy one that you really want. But if it's all battered down the sides or it's ripped or it's creased, I just don't do it. I absolutely, under no circumstances do I buy the game. I just wait. I play the waiting game. And honestly, trust me, you might not think it, because the urge obviously is there to get the game you want straight away. But if you bide your time, wait for the right game to come along in the right condition, I don't mind paying a lot more. Even if it's an extra 10 quid, 20 quid, 30 quid, whatever it is. If it's a game in great condition that I really want, I will quite happily wait. And when it arrives, you feel glad. You feel pleased with yourself that you waited and then you didn't kind of cave into temptation and buy the rubbish copy one because it was a tenner. I'd rather pay 40 quid and get a really good condition. So that's what I've got here. It wasn't 40 quid, by the way. It was only about 15 quid. So really pleased to get this. Street Racer. It's kind of, think of like a poor man's, let's be honest, a poor man's Mario Kart. But it's still a really decent game. I nearly said good game. It's a decent to good game. Very colourful, very bright. As I said about Bubsy, the Bobcat. And in fact, many games back then from the Super Nintendo kind of era. The palette was very bright, wasn't it? A lot of games that they used... a lot of games that were out used that kind of bright palette for games, and as a result looks really bright and in your face, but really good and colourful and cartoony. It's a decent game, it's just not amazing. It's certainly not better than Mario Kart, that's for certain. So with that in mind, I'm going to wrap this retro, can we call it retro with 360? Kind of can. They're still making games for it, but it still is retro, I think, maybe. But the rest is. If the 360 isn't, the rest is definitely retro. So I'm going to be back tomorrow, I think. I'm waiting to see if I drop this. Tomorrow with a Xbox One pickups vid, because I've got quite a few Xbox One games that I bought over the last few months. There's just a bit of a, I guess a preview, not a preview, kind of a summing up, if you like, of all the games and all the formats that I've just showed you. Nice eclectic bunch, range of different colours and spines there. So really pleased to get them, as always, obviously, because I bought them. So yeah, that Xbox One vid, if you like your modern stuff, that will probably be up tomorrow or the day after. I'm going to record it tomorrow. So yeah, until then, thanks for watching. Sorry again for not being very active when it comes to making vids. I'm not going to put a date on it. I know I've just said I'll do the current Gen 1 tomorrow, and I will do that. But I'm not going to put a date on my next vid after that, because I am the expert, the king of saying, oh, I'll upload a vid tomorrow, and then 3 weeks, or in this case 2.5 months go by, and I haven't done it. But I'm sorry about that. You know, it's not great, is it? You subscribe to a channel, you want to see content, and I'm going to start producing a lot more content, or releasing, or uploading a lot more videos, essentially, going forward. It's just about getting into a routine. And if you're watching this and you've not made a video yourself for a while, stop being lazy, make a video, no excuses. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you later.